when you're an activist going against the powers that be, and you think you have a good argument in some case, in some instance, it's a good idea, I think, to look for points you're making that the powers that be seem to be trying to avoid, because they may be avoiding it for a reason. They may know that it's their weakness. It is their Achilles heel. They know they do not have a case there. So they're going like, abiding by Sun Tzu's The Art of War, where I have to paraphrase, but something like when you know your enemy is where you know your enemy is superior to you, evade him. So I think they're evading where they know their opponents, us, the activists, are superior to them. And I think in the case of mandates and how they're coercive, that's where they know they do not have a case. So I think that's something we need to pursue, is the issue of coercion and vaccine mandates. And I think they are coercive. They meet the legal, coercion is a legal word, legal term. And I have brought up here on my computer the definition of Black's Law Dictionary, which is basically the standard of law dictionaries. They have here, so I'll read it to you and ask the question, what is coercion? And the answer is compulsion, force, duress. It may be either actual, direct or positive, in parentheses, where physical force is put upon a man to compel him to do an act against his will, or implied, legal or constructive, in parentheses, where the relation of the parties is such that one is under subjection to the other and is thereby constrained to do what his free will would refuse. So as in subjection, as in, you mean like the employee under the subjection of his employer? That sounds like that would meet this definition of coercion in terms of vaccine mandates, where an employee whose free will would refuse the vaccine, but his employer requires it. That would be a case of the employee being under duress or under coercion to get the vaccine, because his free will would refuse the vaccine and is only agreeing to it, consenting, that's the issue there, only consenting to it, under quotes, air quotes there, to the vaccine due to under duress. So now the question is that really a valid consent? I do not think it is. I think that's a consent is a form of a contract, and contracts, as far as I know, are generally not considered valid if they're signed under duress or coercion. So now I'm wondering, aren't all the vaccines, not just in the U.S. but across the world, do they not require a signed consent form before the vaccine is administered? I believe they are. So then, given that there's obviously coercion going on, are these vaccines then being administered without a valid consent being given? Even if they sign it, if it's done under coercion, under duress, then wouldn't that make that an invalid consent? Therefore, the administering party of the vaccine are administering the vaccine without a valid consent. What is the legal implications of that? I'm wondering. Is it possible that some of these, there's some very large corporations providing the vaccine, giving the vaccine. That's one of the easiest things to look up. And so I quickly looked it up. They sure make it easy to find out where you can get a vaccine these days. One of the easiest searches you can make. And so I very quickly was able to find out, some very large corporations, including one that is part of the Dow 30, basically 30 largest corporations are in the Dow. One of those is one of those organizations administering the vaccine. I'm wondering, they got very deep pockets. So I'm wondering, wouldn't that make them potentially liable for future lawsuits? Because I don't think that they can ever possibly claim plausible deniability of knowledge that people are only getting the vaccine because of under duress, that they're only because they're being coerced to get the vaccine. Therefore, thereby invalidating the consent that they signed before they get the vaccine. I mean, it's with the presidential vaccine mandate, and now I've just heard today that some major airlines, they're also requiring is going to be requiring a vaccine for their passengers. So I don't think there's any way they can maintain plausible deniability of knowledge of coercion going on when it comes to the people getting the COVID vaccine. Therefore, and then I'm not hearing, fortunately, I'm hearing more people talking about the issue of coercion. People, that are complaining about it, saying, this is coercion. What I'm not hearing is that about the mainstream media or the big government or big medical institutions or big hospitals. They are not addressing the issue of coercion. I think that's because they know very well that they do not have a case there. They know very well that it is coercion going on with all the vaccine mandates. That it is coercion, and it is wrong. That is unethical. That's wrong, and violates. It's very questionable legal. Also, in terms of the consent forms that are being signed before every vaccine, they know that that's their weakness, and so I think they're trying to do whatever they can to avoid the issue of the question of coercion and whether or not that is going on when it comes to vaccine mandates. So it's something I think we should keep pushing, keep bringing it up, bring up the topic whenever possible. Do not stop, and eventually they're going to have to address that. And once they address it, they're going to have to acknowledge that yes, it is coercion. And I think that these large corporations that are administering the vaccine, I know the vaccine makers, they have some protection against the for vaccine injuries, for lawsuits for vaccine injuries. But as far as I know, the administrators, the people the organizations giving the vaccine, giving the actual jab, I do not, as far as I know, they're not protected. I could be wrong, but as far as in terms of something like this, the consent form, I don't think I could be wrong, but as far as I know, they're not protected by any liability in terms of whether or not they're giving providing the vaccine within invalid consent, without a valid consent. So that could that open up these deep-pocketed corporations to lawsuits in the future, given that they know very well, with knowledge and forethought, that they're providing the vaccine without a valid consent. I think that's a possibility. They could be facing some big lawsuits. I think they need to be told about that. Hey, you guys could be facing some big lawsuits. Is that in your shareholders' best interest? That question needs to be raised. We need to keep bringing up this topic of coercion. I think they know, the powers that be know very well that this is coercion going on with these vaccine mandates. We need to keep bringing it up over and over again, and don't stop, and just keep persisting with bringing up the topic of that vaccine mandates are coercive. Undoubtedly, there's no way of getting around it. So yeah, that's what I just wanted to get this video out, and I hope, yeah, just if you're watching, hey, yeah, thanks for watching.